And now the news. And this week, the new VW Polo disappoints me, China's latest undercover operative, and an almost affordable Renault 5 Turbo. The new ID Polo has been unveiled, and I need to start with an apology. Because I've gone on record speaking very highly of the new interior and also of the leaked images that came out about a month ago. The full release has now happened, and I really had high hopes for this. I thought we were getting back to the brilliant design of the early 2010s, and from the leaked images, I thought I was right. Then I saw the back. What on God's green earth were they thinking? Because here you have this gorgeous spiritual successor to the 6R, in my opinion, the best Polo shape, and then they just give up as soon as they get to the back of the car. I don't even have words for how much of a letdown this is, and how contrasting the back and the front are. I know this sort of rear design is not completely unusual in the world of VW, but I still expected better. I thought that with the amazing design language in front, we would get amazing design language at the back, and not just whatever you can put together on the last hour of a Friday. And while I'm here, I'm going to be honest. Hidden rear door handles work on some cars, but not on a Polo. A Polo is supposed to be a competent, functional, good-looking car that doesn't rock the boat too much. And while hidden rear door handles look fantastic on cars like the Civic, this misses the mark for me here. A 3-door Polo looks awesome, but a 5-door Polo has great proportions as well. I think they've forgotten what the essence of a Polo is, or at least when they got to the last third of the car they did. You know, actually, the longer I stare at it, the more I realize it's not beyond saving. It just needs the design team to stop being sheep and think for themselves for once. There are two problems I see here. One is those stupid little beady eyes it has for rear lights, and the other is the light bar. I don't understand why one company did a light bar and now every single other one thinks that light bars are the only way to do anything. I really hope that light bars go the same way as pop-up headlights did. Someone in the EU will say they're too distracting and then they'll get outlawed. The difference is that unlike pop-up headlamps, no one will miss this dumb fad. Anyway, time for the improvements. So here is the original picture, and as you can see, it is ugly. Like I said, you've got these horrible little lights, and then you've got this light bar, and all of it just kind of merges together into one long, weird strip of lights, as opposed to having any defining features or a standout look. But I've been able to redo this in a way that I think will make a much better look of it. And I will point out here that I only did one side of it just to get the idea across. VW can pay me if they want to see the rest of it. Now, look, let's be honest here. I'm not a designer and I'm barely good at Photoshop. So this is very much a scuffed design. But the whole point here is just to get the point across, not to actually design a car. So the first thing I did here was just remove the light bar itself. This still doesn't look amazing, and to be honest, it now starts to feel a little bit too much like a Renault Clio at the back for my liking, with those sort of thin lights at the back, but I still feel like it's a big improvement already. Then I thought, you know what, if those lights are a problem, I'm going to copy the lights of a car that I already spoke of very highly in this video, the 6R, just to make a few points. So the first thing you can see here is if we remove the light bar and we actually put a good looking light in, the car immediately looks better. It just feels a bit more comfortable, a bit more friendly, a bit more approachable. Unlike this weird sort of RoboCop vibe that it's got with the red lights across the back. And the second point I'd like to make on this is what I mean by it's a spiritual successor to the 6R. Because if you just put the 6R's taillight on this car, it looks like an evolution of that vehicle, which is exactly what I've been praising it for. The third option is a bit of a weird one, I know, but I just kind of wanted to indulge them with their light bar fetish. So what I did is, again, it's scuffed, but let's just go with it. I kept the light bar in, and I sort of melded it very crappily into the 6R's taillight. Again, it's just to get the point across. But even just that, I feel like it makes it a massive improvement. Because you have a bit more size to the light. It kind of brings out a bit more of a face, rather than just looking like a robot. And I feel like something even that small makes a massive difference on this car. So you see, from these examples that I've done, which have been very minimal, very basic tweaks, the car isn't ugly. I just think it's misguided. Anyway, onto the specs. It'll come with 3 power outputs, namely 114 horsepower, 133 horsepower, and 208 horsepower. Down the line, there will be a GTI version with 223 horsepower as well. Range will be anywhere from 315 to 452 kilometers, or 197 to 252 miles, depending on the spec you pick. And the spec you pick will also determine the 0 to 100 time, or 0 to 62. Slowest will be 11 seconds, and the fastest version is going to be 7.4 seconds. Another little interesting throwback to the 6R here is that the 6R, its warm hatch version, that being the Blue GT, did the 0 to 100 time in 7.6 seconds. So I feel like the top of the range version here is a bit of a, almost like a warm hatch, compared to the full-on GTI, which will be the hot hatch down the line. DC fast charging is also included, and it'll get the battery from 10 to 80% in around 24 minutes. Now, as we go inside the car, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping just to stop people whining about me having different opinions. I still like the interior, but I do wish the screens were integrated into the dash rather than just leaning against it. There is a 13-inch screen and the same interior that VW showed off at the beginning of the year. Imagine how annoying it'll be to clean dirt in behind those screens. Lastly, the press release touched on the retroness of the car, highlighting the digital dash that's styled to look like the Mark I Golfs. That I can agree with, but the part I don't believe them on is when they tell you that the C-pillar is derived from the first generation Golf. Because here's the Polo C-pillar alongside my old Golf C-pillar. And if we're going to take it all the way back, here it is next to an original Golf from the early 80s. Don't believe the marketing lies. The car is priced from around 25,000 euros, and while the more expensive trim is already available for sale in Germany, the base model will start selling in the next few months. The UK has taken another step to going full China with this, the Freelander. And no, that wasn't a slip of the tongue. Freelander used to be a Land Rover, but it's been sacrificed by JLR in the name of survival. The brand and this car, the Freelander 8, are a joint effort by JLR and Chinese brand Chery, the same name behind Jaeku and Omoda, with JLR providing the name and design, and Chery providing pretty much the whole car otherwise. It'll be a standalone brand and ironically will compete directly against Land Rover products like the Defender and the Range Rover. And if you're wondering how that's possible, because the Freelander generally was a smaller SUV, this isn't. This one will be slightly larger than the current Defender. It'll come with a range of EV and hybrid variants, with all the components coming from the Chery brand. This means a 1.5-litre motor in E-Rev configuration, meaning it'll sit there and be a generator for the 2 electric motors powering the wheels. The interior has also been designed by Land Rover, with Chery components then underpinning everything. Even though this is coming to the UK eventually, the current specs are only relevant to the Chinese market, meaning while I can tell you this is only a 5-seater and will have a massive screen for the rear occupants, that could all change by the time it gets spec'd for the local market. Regardless, while this is likely to be a good product that's priced well, this is yet more evidence of how the UK car companies are having to sell their souls just to survive. For those unfamiliar, JLR and Chery signed an agreement in 2024 to work together on this project. Granted, it harnesses the strengths of each side nicely, with Land Rover's design complementing Chery's manufacturing and technology gains. The plan is to turn Freelander into a global brand separate from either company, and to introduce a new model every 6 months, starting in the second half of this year. Given this won't actually fool true Land Rover fans, JLR might actually be doing something right here for a change. I don't like the dilution of a British brand, if I'm honest, but it's hard to deny that JLR does need the money. This is a good way to attract customers while knowing that their core products will still sell, because Land Rover fans won't be interested in this. And considering Chery is footing most of the costs for the actual manufacture and probably distribution of this, it means that JLR has printed some money for free, which should hopefully help them stay afloat after all the cyber attacks and recalls and confused sexuality. The Renault 5 Turbo 3E at a cool £140,000 before options might be a little bit out of most people's budget. If that is the case and you still want one, then for probably £10 less than the real thing, you can have a Lego one instead. At least, that's the hope of user Devon Bricks, who submitted the idea to LEGO and is closing in on the 10,000 supporters required to have LEGO consider turning this into a real set. The LEGO build looks really good, with great attention to detail and a faithful replication of the car it's based on. At time of writing, the idea has 7,300 supporters, so if you want to sell your real car to be able to afford this LEGO one, go to the LEGO Ideas site and help the creator out. I'm not a LEGO person myself, but this would be a great addition to LEGO cars. It's certainly better than that abomination they call the LEGO R34 Skyline. Okay, it has been yet another bumper week or so for recalls, so let's get into it. It's been a while since we reported on any shrapnel airbags, but here we are again. Seat Ibiza and Arona models are taking it upon themselves to do double damage in an accident. The gas generator in their airbags may deploy incorrectly and send pieces of itself and surrounding components straight at the front passengers. And continuing the trend of airbags, Nissan Cubes are suffering from a similar problem with the same sort of outcome. Although, let's be honest here, there are worse things than death, like driving a Nissan Cube. Land Rover has taken an opposite approach to the airbag recalls. Instead of sending the airbag parts towards you, if you're sitting in the third row, you'll be sent towards the airbag parts. This is because the third row seatbelts aren't welded in properly, so they could send occupants flying forward in a crash. In all honesty, I always thought that being in the third row of an SUV probably meant you expected to die in a crash anyway. Not content with stopping there though, the fuel tank on Defenders might not be thick enough, meaning a possible fuel leak in a crash with a resulting firewall. Stellantis is up next, unsurprisingly, with more engine trouble. This time, Peugeot 3008 and 5008 models may have an exploding engine. Turns out some of them don't have a cooling nozzle in the engine block that they should, meaning in warmer temperatures the engine could very well detonate. This one is an ouchie for Peugeot because regardless of the condition one of these cars arrives in, be it exploded engine or pre-explosion recall, it'll effectively need a new motor. The good news is production of this ticking time bomb only went on for 2 days, so there shouldn't be many recalls. Certain Jeep Wagoneer S and Dodge Charger EVs might lose their instrument cluster. As in,
computer says no.
It seems it's just a software fix thankfully, but my point about software-defined vehicles continues to be made. Not one to shy away from this segment, Ford is making waves once again. I feel like I've reported this one before, but just in case I'll do it again. Ford Rangers, embarrassingly made in South Africa, may have their brake calipers fall off because the bolts weren't tightened properly. The report details many scary consequences, but their outcomes are all the same, no brakes. South Africans have a running joke that Ford Rangers aren't very good, and while I don't really partake in the joke much, this isn't helping. Thankfully, the next issue on the Ford Ranger isn't one coming from the ones made in South Africa. Canadian-built Rangers and Broncos could lose height adjustment when the bolts fall out from the front seats. That'll do wonders for the Ranger owners suffering from short man syndrome. The lost American OEM we'll bully today is Tesla. Certain Cybertrucks equipped with 18-inch steel wheels could see a wheel fly off when the badly made stud hole cracks and the stud falls out. This will likely lead to a crash, and for the sake of the world, let's hope it means another one of these abominations is written off. Moving over the Atlantic, we come to Volkswagen, although ironically this is an American recall. They've been having some fun in the last week or so, and by fun I mean thinking up creative ways to kill their customers. The first one is the Taos, which could start leaking fuel after getting rear-ended. Granted, it's only likely to be a problem if the car was also rolled during this rear-ending, so it's unlikely to actually happen. The next on the VW list are the Audi Q5 and SQ5. The front seatbelt tensioners might not work in an accident, turning you into the confetti in a shaken snow globe in a crash. Okay, this is getting long, but we're nearly at the end.
That's what she said.
Toyota's RAV4 has front seats that haven't been welded properly, much like the Defender from earlier. As per usual, snow globe confetti in a crash. Hyundai Tucsons and Elantras have side impact sensors that aren't fitted right. It's all speculation as to what that actually means during a crash, in terms of airbags popping off and not popping off, but my advice would be to not find out the hard way. And finally, Mitsubishi is saying hi with a busted tailgate shock that could rust and break apart, meaning it'll come down and hit you on the head. Here's an example of how that could work. And that is the end of the news.